Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from AzureAutomation.com, and welcome to another section of our continuous integration, development and delivery with Azure DevOps course. And in this video, we are going to talk about Azure Pipeline, and in this whole section, we are going to be talking about the Azure pipelines. So this is one of the most important section, and I know this is the reason why you have chosen this course, because there are so many important things to be discussed in this section, because this is where we are going to be discussing about the actual build, the actual execution of our code, and deploying that within the environment. It can be your local machine, or it can be a remote Azure container or a Kubernetes service or something like that. So we are going to be talking about them in this particular section. All right, so let's get started. So before jumping into the Azure pipelines, the good news is get cloud hosted pipelines for Linux, Mac, and Windows with unlimited minutes and 10 free parallel jobs for open source project. So the open source project is something that we are using as a project template right now in this whole course. So we get an unlimited minutes of execution for the agents which are in these ecosystems like Linux, Mac, and Windows operating system, which is really, really cool. And if you're also going to execute a test for parallel jobs, then you can have them like 10 free parallel jobs for the open source project, which is also very, very cool. So this is a cool thing that you can see that the whole stuff is kind of very, very interesting with Microsoft, and they are offering so many things for free. I guess it's for initial stage, but I hope they are going to maintain the same for future as well. Azure Pipelines. Azure Pipelines helps you implement a build, test, and deployment pipeline for any applications that we are building. So the Azure supports different programming languages and deployments to various different popular environments. So this is really cool to see that Azure DevOps now support many different programming languages, something like this. They support .NET Core, Anaconda, Android, ASP.NET, C, C++, Docker, Go, Java, JavaScript, PHP, and you name it. There are so many different language support, and they are going to be keep on adding if there is any new programming languages or any popular programming language coming to the market, which is really awesome to see that Azure Pipeline support that. And the Azure Pipeline supported deployment environments and technologies are these. They support Azure Kubernetes Service, Stack, Azure SQL Database, Azure Web App, Linux VM, NPM, NuGet, Virtual Machine Manager, VMware, Web App for containers, and Windows Virtual Machine. And most importantly, they also do in the local machines, which is nothing but the IaaS if you want to deploy. So this is the one which we are going to be discussing in this whole course, and you can see that it's something that you can deploy in any one of these ecosystems and environments, which is really awesome. And finally, the Azure Pipeline service that we are going to be discussing in this particular section consists of two most important components, other than the other components they actually have, but these are the most important thing: the build pipeline and the release pipeline. So the build pipelines and the release pipeline are the two most important things where you're going to create an actual build, and then you're actually going to release that build that you're going to be deploying into those different environments that we saw in our previous slide. And there are some other components in the Azure Pipeline service, something like libraries, task groups, and deployment groups. And these are important as well, because in libraries, you're going to be creating the global variables, and in deployment groups, you're going to be creating a deployment group, which is something that you'll be using within the release pipeline. So you're going to use that. So these are the important thing that we'll be using in this section, guys. So these are very important components as well. So then finally, the build and release pipeline, we can configure the system with either a classical way or the modern way with the YAML file. The YAML files are handy in many sense, as they can be exported and used in very easily with that particular file format. And these are like pretty much like the Jenkins pipeline that we already discussed in other courses in the build, deploy, test with the Jenkins course of Udemy as well as in YouTube, where we discussed how we can create the Jenkins pipelines and how you can write the code in Jenkins pipeline much easily. The whole idea of the release pipeline and build pipeline is pretty much exactly like how the Jenkins pipeline was actually built. Let's quickly see everything in action and understand how things work. So for that, I'm going to flip to my Azure DevOps service right now.